Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and we're gonna try to keep this video on the shorter side, although I know how that sometimes goes. So we'll see. Take a look at the length of the video and laugh to yourself. I'm guessing it's gonna be like a 10-minute video, maybe 15 to 20. If it goes to 25, something went horribly wrong. Anyways, the title of this video is something along the lines of the score isn't enough, or something like that. I have to come up with a better title, but the concept, the idea, is if you're looking at a score, a rating score, if you're looking at a rating score when you watch a board game review, and this applies to anything, honestly, but we're talking board games here, so we're going to make it about board games. If you're looking at just the score, and you're ignoring the rest of the video, you're missing out on a whole lot of nuance that a score can't possibly convey. And I do think a score can't possibly convey the amount of nuance you actually need in a video, in a review. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should watch every single review. I'm saying that I completely get it. Half the time I watch a Dice Tower review, I watch the whole thing. The other half the time, I skip to the end and see what the various scores are, and from there. And sometimes I go back and watch stuff depending on the scores. But that's also an interesting part. But I'm not saying you have to watch the video. I'm really, truly not. There's a lot of content out there, and sometimes it's just faster and easier to jump to the score and forget the rest of it. But you will be missing out on context, because scores have limits as to how much they can possibly convey. The impetus for this video is recently I reviewed Everdell Emerald. At this point I have to think and pause before I say any Everdell. I recently reviewed Everdell Emerald, and I gave it a 5, and I said in the video, this is like a not exciting 5 out of 5. I was like, this is the least exciting 5 out of 5 I've ever given, and that's true, but okay, let's take a step back. It's the least exciting 5 out of 5 I've ever given, which is completely true, but I also have a hard time going lower. Everdell Emerald is a game that is just as good as base Everdell, possibly better. There's so many Everdells at this point that I definitely have preferences and priorities, but like, they're all incredibly solid. They all give you the same arc. Everdell, Farshore, Everdell Spirecrest or Silverfrost. I always forget. Silverfrost, I think, is the one it's called, but I forget which one's which every single time. And then Everdell Emerald. All of them standalone Everdell games, all of them being very similar as to what they're doing, all of them having small, unique tweaks, and all of them are utterly enjoyable games that I'm happy to play any of them. They're great. I can't give Everdell a 5. I can't give Everdell Emerald less than a 5 out of 5, because that would be a weird... I think Everdell to me is still a 5 out of 5 game. It's still absolutely a 5 out of 5 experience. And my ratings have meanings to them. I have actual meanings to my ratings, which I'll go through at the end of the video, or you can skip to that timestamp, because why not? But my ratings have actual meanings to them, and Everdell, as far as the enjoyment I get out of it, is a 5 out of 5. So is Emerald, so is Farshore, and so is Silverfrost. I'm pretty sure it's called Silverfrost, not Spirecrest, but I always forget. They all have a 5 out of 5. For me to give Everdell Emerald less than a 5 out of 5, when I'm just as happy to play that as I am to play base Everdell, wouldn't be accurate to my rating system. But people very fairly pointed out, like, it feels weird for you to be giving a 5 out of 5 to something you're not excited about. And I'm like, I agree. It feels weird. Which is why I made a point of both giving it a 5 out of 5 while talking about how it's not exciting to give it a 5 out of 5. It's just another twist on Everdell. I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like it. But I'm just not excited about liking it because they put out Everdell every single year now for 4 years straight. It's not like they put out Everdell every 3 years, every 4 years. It's not like it comes out infrequently. Every single year a new Everdell comes out with a small twist on the genre. And that's just not exciting. Is it still a 5 out of 5? Yes, it is. How do you deal with that in a score? This isn't the only example I'm going to give. I'm going to give a bunch of examples of things that are hard to wrap into a score. It's very hard to simply look at a rating and be able to deal with that issue. Now, someone pointed out, why don't you give a rating for like how innovative or new something is, but then also a rating for your enjoyment? That's great. That's a great idea. Except as we go through these other examples, you'll see that there's also a lot of other things that could require multiple rating systems. And you could theoretically solve this problem by having like 7 different ratings for a game every single time you rate a game. I think that most of the time that's not going to be a great system to have a whole chunk of ratings for a game. So for me, I have a single rating based on what my rating system means. I stick to that rating, and then the rest of the stuff you'll get in the what I liked, what I didn't like, in the final thoughts. You'll get all that nuance. But if you just focus on the rating, you're missing out, and you're missing the point. If I sit there and tell you all the reasons something doesn't give a 5 out of 5, and your response to that is to say, well, then it shouldn't be a 5 out of 5, well, you have that information. it still is a 5 out of 5 because my ratings have meanings. But you have the information that makes you challenge the rating. Use the information. Don't get too hung up or too stuck on the rating. This doesn't just apply to my channel. This applies to any channel that uses a score in any way, in any shape and capacity, because ratings have they have a threshold as to how much they can actually weigh into how good something is. This is true across the board, regardless of rating system you use. There are flaws to numeric scales. When you look at a game on BGG that's a lower rating, was it because the game's bad, or was it because the Kickstarter was 3 years late and people review bombed it and said they don't like it? And now you're looking at it, you're like, 6.7, gosh darn, I want to ignore it. Maybe it's a 7.4, maybe it's 7.9, maybe it's going to take a little time to climb out of that poor rating slump because that's what happens. When you look at Rotten Tomatoes is a yes or no rating system. Sure, the average shows up, but it's a yes or a no. You could have a 99% fresh Rotten Tomatoes movie that is significantly better than a 99% Rotten Tomatoes movie, because a whole bunch of people could have been, it's good enough to get the yes, or it could have been that a whole bunch of people are incredibly excited and think it's the best thing ever. Rating systems always will have flaws because you cannot distill the entire nuance of everything you need to know into a single score. There's a bunch of other kind of examples that I wrote down as to different things that will come up, if I can open my phone. Another one is, what was this one? I have a note that says old versus jaded, but I don't remember what that was. I'll have to come back to that one. Kids games. That's a big challenge I've always had. I remember what old versus jaded was. I remember what it was. Kids games. Kids games is a very hard genre to review, or anything that's not your genre. I review kids games. Some kids games are amazing because I love them, my kids love them, we are all thrilled. Other kids games, I'm happy to play with them, they love. How do you rate that? How do you rate a game that, and if I don't like playing it, by the way, that will reflect. But like, I have to talk about that. My kids love this, I hate it. My kids loved it, I'm okay with it. My kids loved it, I loved it. Those are all different things. What about, here's an interesting one, what about a kids game that they love and they can play on their own, they don't need you? Should that get a 5 out of 5? If it's all your kids, if I have 4 kids, if all of them, their favorite game is the same thing, and they don't even need me to play with them, meaning my own enjoyment should almost not be a factor because they're playing it on their own, should it get a 5 out of 5? And the answer to me is no, because I have a rating system and it has a meaning, and I don't want to constantly change the meaning. So I give the rating based on what I think the game is for me. And then I also tell you in the review how much my kids enjoyed it, how much they can play it on their own, how much I have to play it and don't want to play it, how much I'm okay playing it but it's not my favorite game. I give all that information into the video. Another problem with scores, something that's come up a lot on the channel, this is the old versus jaded note, something that comes up a lot on the channel is, over time, it's challenging to figure out how to rate games as you play too many, or more and more games. Meaning, as games get better, should the average score go down to match? Like, over time, should I be harsher on games because there's enough games that are a solid 3.5 or a 4? There's enough games that would get a 4. Maybe I should lower that to a 3.5 as the average out of 5. My rating's out of 5. And that's always a challenge I have, because I don't think that should be the case. I think that games should be judged on how good they are. If everything else is getting better, great. Eventually you'll have a whole bunch of 4.5s out of 5s. It's just how it will work, eventually. I don't think it's fair to ding a game because I've played other games. That my feelings around those games are still the same. The reality is that I could be playing a game for the first time today, or it could be my 400th game. And it's not something that, like, if a game should get a 4 out of 5, should it no longer get a 4 out of 5 because I've played 300 games? What if I was a new reviewer in reviewing my first game today? Does it now deserve a 4 out of 5? How do you gauge the quality of work? Now, there's going to be some natural evolution as to my own tastes. As I play more games, the bar of what I have to think is normal. Like, if I'm going from Monopoly to Stone Age, oh my gosh, Stone Age is a 5 out of 5. But if I've played enough games, maybe Stone Age isn't. So my awareness and how it feeds into my rating system, that's definitely a factor. But just because there's enough games that deserve a 4, I'm not going to ding the rating, but maybe I should. Maybe someone should. And again, it depends. Everyone can have their own way of doing things in their own rating scale. But if you're just paying attention to the score, you won't get that information because scores can only convey so much. Rating based on your own opinion or others. This is another one. I think Shelfside does this. They have like their rating and then they have the rating they give to the game, which is to me such a fascinating concept that, no disrespect to Shelfside, but like it's a subjective rating presenting itself as objective. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think so. they're subjectively giving an objective rating. It's such a weird concept to me, which I can't get behind. How do I rate this game on behalf of others? I'm not others. Sure, I can look at a game and say things like, oh, the art is better. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. One of the lines I heard once is art is inherently subjective, but there's subjectively, objectively bad art. And I think that's true. I think there's a lot of art that I can look at and think that is just bad for everyone. And then there's art that I can look at and think it's not for me, but it's for others. But how do you know exactly where that line is? And sometimes it's easier than others. With art, it's easier. With game mechanics and how well they mesh and flow, sure, I can analytically look at a game and say, okay, well, it doesn't have player elimination. That's good. It doesn't have first player advantage. It doesn't have, like, you can find all the obvious issues that feed into a game and say, okay, those aren't present. Again, subjective, but a degree of objectivity around it. But how well does it all come together? That's a subjective opinion. I don't know how to give a rating based on others, but maybe others do. How do you handle that aspect? Am I rating it for my enjoyment or how I think it'll do for the general crowd? There have been many games where I have sat there and played and I thought, wow, I can see why someone would appreciate this. I don't. But also maybe I'm wrong. And in fact, I have been wrong at times. There have been games that I've played that I said to myself that I'm sure other people appreciate it, and I've been right. And there have been times where I said that and I was wrong. Turns out a whole bunch of people didn't appreciate it, and it wasn't that well rated in general. And I just thought that I'm missing it, but it feels like there's enough there that someone else is going to get it. This is just not for me. I have been wrong, and that's inherently possible because it's a subjective opinion of an objective stance, which is still subjective. So how do you handle that aspect? How do you handle the rating a game gets after a few plays versus after 15 plays? And more importantly, the way a game holds up over time. Because a game that is going to be fun for the first few plays, and the thing I talk about a lot is sometimes my rating is, like, I want to give this game a 4 out of 5 because that's where it is. But I also see that there's not as much replayability as I would like, and so do I rate it based on the future hypothetical rating it might get as things go down over time? Or do I rate it based on where it is today? And also note, but by the way, I do expect this to go down because I do see a lack of replayability. That's a challenge. I don't know how you handle that because it's a guess. Again, the problem I have there is it's a guess. That future replayability is a guess. Sometimes I play a game 5 times and I can see that it's going to get a little old as I play it. Other times I don't think it will. And in both directions, I have been wrong. A similar kind of concept is how do you rate a game that you've burnt out on? This is something that happened to me with a few games, like Gloomhaven, Tenaris. Tenaris didn't burn out quite as much. Tenaris I went out more on a high. But like, there are different games that I've played enough that my opinion, which was once here, has gone down. Now, some games, their opinion's still there. Games like Tigers and Euphrates, Coimbra, I still have the high opinion, and I've just seen it enough that I'm willing to move on. But also, that's another question. Is Coimbra for me still a 5 out of 5 now that I've gotten rid of it? I think it is. I think Coimbra still is a 5 out of 5. I just have seen and experienced it and played it enough. But it's also tricky because now we're in a weird situation where now I'm actually going against my own rules because technically I wouldn't get rid of anything that's a 5 out of 5. Technically. There has to be some sort of weird asterisk. How do you handle that? Games like Tigers and Euphrates. I love Tigers and Euphrates. My 5 out of 5 meaning is my absolutely favorite games. I will rarely, if ever, turn on an opportunity to play these games. But that's partially true with Trigus. It depends on the group I'm playing it with. It's partially true with Coimbra. I've seen it enough. Like, how do you handle those kinds of exceptions? These are challenges that you have when you have a rating system. There are 3.5s in my collection. Not very many, by the way. I think I have like 2. I think when I looked at, I mean, my kids' games is a different story, but my games, I have like 2 or 3 games that I rate a 3.5 or lower. I don't think I have lower. I think 3.5. For the most part, my collection is 4 and higher. But I do have some 3.5s when I've gotten rid of many 4s, many 4.5s, and even a few 5s. How is that possible when you're just looking at a rating system? And again, context matters. Everything matters. Context matters. Like, you know, there's only so many games I can play that are 2-hour-long game nights. I'm pretty sure my 3.5s that I have to go look at it, but I'm pretty sure they're all lighter filler games that are easier to table. So I might get rid of a 2.5-hour-long game because it's just, I won't be able to play it all. But filler games are just so much easier to table that those I have more leeway for being able to hold on to. How do you handle all of these things? And my answer is that a rating alone is not enough. It's a great way to get a lot of information at once. It is. But it's not the full picture. I don't think you need to watch the whole video. I don't think you need to get the whole picture. When there's so much information out there, sometimes getting an incomplete snapshot for a few minutes of your time versus a complete snapshot for a 20-minute video, it's a different equation. And I'm not judging anyone who skips to the end. I'm not. I'm just saying that sometimes if all you do is read the back cover, if all you do is read the Goodreads synopsis and look at the rating, whatever it is, sometimes you're not going to walk away with a complete picture. And you should be okay with that. You absolutely should. You just have to know that that's the risk you're taking to some extent. As far as my rating systems, my numerical rating and what it means, I'll start with a 1 over here. A 1 is, I can't imagine rating a game this poorly ever. It would take something so abysmal, I probably didn't even get to play it. Meaning I didn't get to properly play it, like it's so broken. I don't think I've ever rated anything a 1. I'd have to look back, but I don't think. Certainly not in a dedicated review video. 1.5. I did not like this game. Do you not want to play this game? I think it's a fairly flawed game. That's an important part there. To be a 1.5, I have to think you're fairly flawed. And I have to not enjoy it. I have rated many games 1.5s. More often than not, they don't make their way to a dedicated video because I can't be bothered to play it again. In very rare circumstances, I have played a game enough times that I both gave it a 1.5 and it made its way to a video. But usually if it's a 1.5, I'm not playing it again. And if I'm not playing it again, I'm not rating it. A 2. A 2 is already a big bump up for me. A game I don't want to play again. I'm not saying it isn't good. I'm saying I don't want to play it again regardless of circumstance. That's what a 2 is for me. There's a lot of 2s out there. And very often, not very often, sometimes I think it's even a good game. It's just not for me. If I actively don't want to play it again, and I don't think that there's many circumstances that would compel me to play it again, outside of bribing me, then I'm not interested. Like, there's games that I didn't like, but I want to give another chance to. That goes a little higher. But a 2 is a game that I don't want to play it again. Now, I might play it again for the sake of reviewing it. That might happen. But I don't want to play it again. That's the important distinction. Or maybe it took game 2 for me to not want to play it again. 2.5. Wasn't the biggest fan. Wasn't the worst, but didn't feel like the best use of time. Would prefer not to play it again, but I'm willing to, given the right circumstances. A 2.5 almost always has the exception that, hey, with the right group, with the right set of friends, I'll do whatever. But most 2.5s I do not play again. Again, past what I need to do to review it. Most 2.5s will not get another play, but I'm open to it. Like, hey, I'll try it. Like, Blood on the Clock Tower, the first time I played it, was probably a 2.5 for me. And I gave it another shot. Bumped it up to maybe a 3. It's not a game for me. I know I get so much hate for my Blood on the Clock Tower videos. It's not a game for me. It's just not. I have actively sat there and watched other people play rather than participate. But I'm still willing to possibly play it again, just it requires the right circumstance. It's probably a 2.5. It's probably a 2.5. It's not a 3. Blood on the Clock Tower is still a 2.5. A 3. A good game. I enjoy playing it. But also, if I never play it again, I'm not losing any sleep over it. A 3 is as neutral as it gets. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I never play it again. Who cares? I play it again. Okay, the right circumstance presents itself. I just don't care. 3s are pretty neutral. 3.5. Really enjoyed it. Don't love it. Well, I probably should change the really enjoyed. I enjoyed it. Don't love it. Will often lose out to better games, but there's a part of me that wants to own and play it more. A 3.5 already has the recognition that this is a fun time. I enjoyed my experience with this. I had fun with it. Most games are a 3.5 for me. The biggest complaint that I have against the 3.5 is that it's not the 4.5. It's not the 5s I have. Why would I want to play a 3.5 when I could play a 4 or a 4.5? That's the real question I have. But generally speaking, a 3.5 is an enjoyable, solid game that I think most games are good. A 4. This is where a game becomes recommended. Note that. This is the main thing. For a game to become recommended, it has to be a 4. The reason for that is because there's so many 3.5s that as much as I personally might enjoy it, I have a hard time recommending a 3.5 when there's so many amazing games out there. I might like it, but there's so many amazing games. So a 4 is where I sit there and say, this is good enough that I'm recommending this game. I may not even own it. In fact, at this point, I would say over half the 4s I play, I don't keep anymore. That's just the nature of there being so many good games and constantly having to make choices. But, what did I say? Oh my gosh, no 4. This is where a game becomes recommended. Now, I may or may not be in the mood, or even own it, especially considering other games. But a 4 is where we cross from good to great. I genuinely believe everything I said there. A 4 is where I think it's a really good game and I recommend it. I have a lot of games. I keep half my 4s, if that. And honestly, the other half I probably shouldn't be keeping, because I just have limited game time to play the games that aren't the best of the best. Between my 4.5s and my 5s, I have over 100 games in those categories. I still have a lot of 4s, but I spend like 150 games that are 4s and 4.5s. To play a 4 is making a choice to play something that is lesser than a 4.5 or a 5 almost every time. But it's still good enough that for right now it's recommended. This might change over time. If enough great games happen over time, if I get to a point where my collection is all 5s, maybe a 4.5 becomes recommended. For right now, 4 is recommended. 4.5. Oh my gosh, the absolute best games. But also, I'm not always down to play them. For one reason or another, these are just shy of perfect, whether it's mechanics, length, brain burn, whatever. And again, I think it's a pretty accurate statement. For me, a 4.5 is a really good game that I respect a lot and I have so much fun with, but I'm not always going to be like, yes. There's something that holds it back. Maybe it's setup time, maybe it's the people, maybe it's, I don't know, whatever it is. But it's still great, and I'm usually going to be willing to play them, but something holds it back. And fives, my absolute favorite games, I will rarely, if ever, turn down an opportunity to play these games. And again, that's what a 5 is to me. A 5 is a game that I always want to play. And again, always is a nuanced conversation. Like, you know, there's some people I might not play certain games with, or in certain situations, so I have 2 hours. There's always the question mark, but like, given the opportunity to play one of my 5s, yes, my 5s are amazing. I have like something like 65s in my collection. And they're all games that every single year I re-rate my games, every single year. Every single year I try to figure out which games I actually want to make time for, and which ones I'm still feeling that level of obsession with. But 5 out of 5s are the absolute best games in my collection. That rating scale is in every single review on the channel. If you scroll down the review, I have that rating scale. My ratings are a number, but the numbers have a meaning for a reason. And if you're watching a video, if you're watching a board game review, and you're only looking at the rating and nothing else is there for you, you're getting a good picture, but you are getting an incomplete picture. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I'm going to go snuggle with this cat, and as always, and until next time, I hope you have a good one. You've gotten all three. All 3 showed up on the camera. Okay, well, because he showed up, I'm going to end this video later than the actual time. This, by the way, is why I film less videos than I used to, because the cats are always around, and I love them. I do. They're so much fun. This guy also got a little tuft over here that I need to cut out.